Alright, so in this video, we're going to be checking out the AMA that Brendan Schaubs' former handler, Mark Harley, did over on the Fight in the Kid subreddit. He had a lot to say, and I think he still might be going on there. He's pretty active on that subreddit, so if you have any questions, you might be able to get a response from him. But in this video, we're going to be checking out some of the best questions and responses he gave. There are some really good ones here. Like somebody asked, has Brendan ever mentioned his relationship with Joe? It's clear they don't speak as much as they used to now that he's moved to Texas. Did Brendan ever consider moving there as well? Is he sad to see Joe never asked him to open for his arena shows while he has Hans Kim working with him? And Mark responded, he said, he's seemingly very bitter about the Rogan crew out there. He dismisses all of them as hanger-ons and said, I don't want to live that life. I'm not going to suck on the Joe Rogan tea, etc. Then Mark also said, talks about Rogan a lot, says he's a rattlesnake, hot and cold. That sounds like something Brendan would say. That's also Brendan, though, to everyone beneath him. He makes it seem like now he's never considered moving, but I also heard maybe at the time he did, and his wife said after that. He's always revising history like all narcissists to avoid owning up to a change of opinion. And a lot of these, it's Mark just calling Brendan a narcissist. But this is pretty funny. It sounds exactly like what you'd expect. You know, I'm sure Brendan's probably jealous of the crew that Rogan has over in Texas now. Like, if Brendan had the opportunity to go on Joe's podcast like every other week, I'm sure he would take it. He probably misses those days. And the guy obviously needs something to help his career out. But I don't even know if Rogan can save him at this point. So also, here's another question. Somebody said, Mark, spill the beans on Kalila. What do you know that we don't? He said, have you read her poetry? Other than that, she screamed like a maniac at Brendan on the phone. I did hear Mark say that another time. That is pretty funny. I wish we could hear that. So somebody else asked, how mad was Brendan when Callan went on Legion of Skanks? Holy F, that was so dramatic because Brendan was freaking the F out trying to convince him not to do it. And then also somebody asked him about going on Schaubs' podcast, and he said he did not like that. He felt ambushed and basically sees himself as different because he doesn't do drama podcasting and felt Schaubs betrayed him a little. I figured Brendan wasn't too happy about that, but I definitely gained some respect for Schaubs for doing that because somebody needed to bring it up to him and get him to talk about it. So also on the subreddit, somebody asked Mark about Brendan buying followers, and he said bought like 50,000 IG followers like 6 months ago, I guess, but for sure he's bought hundreds of thousands before that. His page is effed, which sounds about right. I mean, if you look at his Twitter account or Instagram account, it looks like somebody who's bought followers. He barely gets any engagement for the amount of followers he has, and buying followers never really works out. It's always a stupid move. So of course that's something Brendan would do. And then somebody else asked about Gringo Poppy being promoted on the Fight in the Kid and them barely even talking about Brian's special, Man Tears. And Mark said, we all know that's not effing cool. Brendan even had the audacity to say it wasn't doing well numbers-wise, ignoring the great reaction, and forgetting, I guess, that Brendan bought views for Gringo Poppy to make it hit 1 million by a certain deadline. A few 100,000 apparently. Oops. And yeah, turns out that F's your entire channel's algorithm. Fake it till you fail miserably, Bappa. So if that's true, that's hilarious. Buying a couple 100,000 views for a YouTube video, that's so pointless. It's just a waste of money. And I don't think it's that cheap either. But it sounds like Brendan just loves wasting money. And speaking of that, somebody asked, how's Brendan doing financially? Mark said, based on certain signs I'm aware of, not well. And somebody else asked, honest question here, why in the F keep up such an unnecessary lifestyle if you're bleeding money? And then Mark said, I think like many narcissists, the false self-projection is the only thing he has as a defense between his incomplete, fractured, rough draft self and the outside world. He's also just inherently materialistic. Things make him happy for a period of time. I was a thing, an appliance, if you will, like many others in his life. And then somebody else asked, did Theo leave because he is sick of Brendan's crap? Mark responded, I think you can see what Theo was going through with how Chris reacts to him now on TGH. Somebody else said, tell us more. Mark said, I've talked to Theo like 4 times in my life, but I think it's pretty obvious Brendan annoys the F out of him, and there's legitimate hostility underneath his roast. So here's another question. Somebody basically asked what it's like when the cameras are off, and what does Brendan do around there? And he said, Brendan contributes exactly 0 to production. He can't edit, he can't film, he can't direct, he can't light, he can't do sound, can't coordinate talent. What would he do? There's enough hands on deck to lift the shift though, so he's good. He spends about 8 to 12 hours in the studio each week and constantly silences anyone complaining about feeling exhausted by being on call for him 24/7 with some version of, oh, you want to compare schedules with me? Like he's a Goldman Sachs investment banker working 100 hours a week. But every employee I've ever worked with there is awesome and I like as an individual. And it's funny because Brendan is the only person that Mark has negative things to say about. Like everyone else there, it sounded like he enjoyed working with. Even Chris D'Elia and Brian Callan. He only has positive things to say about them too. And also, I think I remember seeing somewhere on this AMA, Mark said that he believes Chris is getting paid about $40,000 a month for doing the Golden Hour podcast with Brendan. And then also while he's on Red Bar, I think he said Brian makes like $20,000 a month for doing the fight and the kid. And I can't imagine those podcasts make much more than that, if they even make that much. So Brendan's got to be losing so much money here. It's crazy. All right, so here's the response that I think caught the most people's attention on this AMA. Somebody said, can you confirm that Brendan pees in the pool, hot tubs, and throws his socks out after wearing them once? These two issues bother me more than anything else he's done. And then Mark responded and said, he pees in the sink every day at Thick Boy Studios in front of everyone. And the creative director asked him very politely to stop, and he said, sure thing, and kept doing it. If that's true, that's by far the funniest thing that Brendan's ever done. And I don't know what's more surprising, Brendan peeing in a sink or the fact that he has a creative director at Thick Boy Studios. And then Mark went on to say, the sink in the middle of the studio, 10 feet from the table where the fight companions are shot, just unzips and starts pissing, no warning, multiple times a day, doesn't clean off the splash. Everyone else uses the bathroom in the hall, but like all narcissists, the only thing that Brendan cares about is asserting power over others, and this is the way he does it. So that is crazy. That is by far the biggest revelation to come out of this whole AMA. But again, this is all just what his former handler had to say, so it's all alleged. I don't know for sure. But let me know what you guys think about it. Leave me a comment. Then check out my Patreon. I have a bunch of videos up there. I'll probably be posting another one in a few days. Then make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you at the next video.